Dr. Marcus Webb walked down the cold metal hallway of Titan's Gate Research Station. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. It was his first week at the station, and he was still learning his way around. The station floated in space near Jupiter's moon, far from Earth. Marcus was a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had come to this station because they said there were important discoveries to be made here. But nobody had told him about the prisoner in the lower levels. Commander, Lisa Kane met him at the elevator that went down to the restricted areas. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and serious eyes. Her uniform was clean and pressed, and she carried herself like someone used to giving orders. "Dr. Webb, what I'm about to show you is classified," she said as they rode the elevator down. "You cannot speak about this to anyone outside of authorized personnel." Marcus nodded. He had signed many papers about keeping secrets when he joined the station, but he wondered what could be so important that it needed this much security. The elevator stopped at level B7. Marcus had never been this deep in the station before. The walls here were thicker, and he could see heavy blast doors every few meters. Whatever they kept down here, they really didn't want it getting out. 3 months ago, we captured something during a raid on an alien ship, Kane explained as they walked. "The thing we caught is dangerous, very dangerous." They passed several armed guards who stood at attention when they saw Kane. Marcus noticed that the guards looked nervous, even though they tried to hide it. Their hands stayed close to their weapons. "What kind of alien?" Marcus asked. "We call them Vorthak," Kane said. "They're big, strong, and they hate humans." They stopped at a thick window made of reinforced glass. Kane pressed a button on the wall, and lights came on in the room beyond. Marcus looked through the window and felt his breath catch in his throat. Inside, the cell was the largest humanoid creature he had ever seen. She stood at least 12 feet tall with long limbs and pale blue skin. Her hair was white and hung down to her shoulders. She wore simple gray clothing that looked like a prison uniform. But what struck Marcus most were her eyes. They were silver, like mirrors. And when she looked at the window, he felt like she was looking right into his soul. There was intelligence there. Deep, sad intelligence. "Her name is Subject 47, Kane said. "But some of the guards call her Sarah. Don't ask me why." Marcus watched as Sarah moved around her cell. She was thin, too thin. He could see her ribs through the loose clothing. Her movements were slow and careful, like someone who was very tired, or very weak. "How long has she been here?" Marcus asked. 3 months. We've been trying to study her, but it's difficult. She won't cooperate with most tests." The cell was bare except for a simple bed and a toilet. No books, no entertainment, nothing to do but sit and wait. Marcus felt a strange pang in his chest as he watched her. She looked lonely. "Have you tried communicating with her?" Kane's face grew hard. "Dr. Webb, let me be very clear about something. This creature is not a pet. She is not friendly. She has killed 3 people since she's been here." Marcus turned away from the window to look at Kane. "Killed? How?" "Each time someone tried to feed her. The first was a guard who felt sorry for her. He thought she looked hungry, so he brought her some food from the cafeteria. When he got close to give it to her, she grabbed him through the food slot and broke his neck." Marcus felt cold. "What about the others? A scientist like you?" "Doctor." Peterson thought he could study her eating habits, same result. The third was a maintenance worker who accidentally dropped his lunch near her cell. When he tried to get it back, she killed him too. Kane pressed the button again, and the lights in Sarah's cell went out. In the darkness, Marcus could still see her silver eyes watching them. "The thing goes crazy when food is involved," Kane continued. "Our best guess is that feeding triggers some kind of hunting instinct in her species. That's why we only feed her through the automated system now. No human contact." They walked away from the window, but Marcus found himself looking back. Those silver eyes stayed in his mind. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. "Because you're our new xenobiologist. You'll be studying her from a distance, reviewing video, footage, analyzing her behavior, trying to understand how her species thinks. But under no circumstances are you to have direct contact with her. What's the goal? Information. The Vorthak have been attacking our colonies. If we can understand how they think, maybe we can find a way to fight them better. Or maybe we can use her as leverage in negotiations. They reached the elevator again. As they rode back up, Kane handed Marcus a datapad with his security clearance and research assignments. Remember, Dr. Webb, no contact, no feeding, no going near her cell alone. The guards have orders to stop anyone who tries. That creature is a killer, and we can't afford to lose any more people. Marcus nodded and took the datapad. But as the elevator rose toward the upper levels, he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. Yes, Sarah was big and strong. Yes, she had killed people. But something about the scene bothered him. Those eyes didn't look like the eyes of a mindless killer. They looked like the eyes of someone who was trapped and scared and alone. That night, Marcus sat in his small quarters and reviewed the files on Sarah. The reports all said the same thing. Dangerous, violent, unpredictable. But the more he read, the more questions he had. Why did she only attack people who brought food? Why not attack the guards who just walked by? And why did she look so thin if the automated feeding system was working? Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow he would find out more about Subject 47. Maybe not by talking to her, but by watching her more carefully than anyone had before. He didn't know it yet, but that decision would save both their lives. Marcus spent the next 2 days watching video footage of Sarah. He saw her daily routine, which wasn't much. She would wake up, sit on her bed, stare at the walls, and then sleep again. The automated feeding system dropped food pellets into her cell twice a day, but Marcus noticed something odd. She only ate about half of what was given to her. The rest she would push into a corner and ignore. This was strange behavior for someone who was supposed to go crazy around food. Marcus also noticed that she never tried to break out. For someone who was 12 feet tall and had killed 3 people, she seemed surprisingly calm. She never threw things or screamed or tried to damage her cell. She just sat there like she had given up hope. On his 3rd day, Marcus decided to visit her cell during the night shift. The corridors were empty except for a few guards making their rounds. He took the elevator down to level B7 and walked to the observation window. Sarah was awake, sitting on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest. When the lights came on, she looked toward the window. For a moment, their eyes met through the glass. Marcus had brought a small apple from the cafeteria. He knew it was against orders, but he wanted to test something. Instead of trying to give it to her directly, he placed it on a ledge near the window where she could see it. Sarah stood up slowly and walked to the glass. She looked at the apple, then at Marcus. Her expression was hard to read, but she didn't look angry or violent. She looked curious. Marcus pointed to the apple, then to her. Then he backed away from the window and waited. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Sarah just stood there, looking at the apple and occasionally glancing at Marcus. Then, very carefully, she reached out and touched the glass where the apple was sitting on the other side. That's when Marcus realized something important. The food slot that had been used to feed her before was big enough for someone to reach through. But it was also big enough for her to reach out. If she had wanted to kill people, she could have grabbed them even if they weren't trying to feed her. The fact that she had only attacked people who came close with food meant something else was happening. Maybe she wasn't trying to kill them. Maybe she was trying to communicate and something had gone wrong. Marcus made a decision that he knew was dangerous. He walked to the food slot and slid the apple through it. Sarah moved toward the slot, but she didn't grab for Marcus. Instead, she picked up the apple and stepped back. She held it carefully, like it was something precious. Then she took a small bite. Her eyes closed, and for the first time since Marcus had seen her, she looked almost happy. It was then that he realized what the problem was. The food pellets from the automated system weren't enough. They kept her alive, but they didn't really feed her. She was slowly starving, and when people brought real food, she was so desperate that she grabbed for it without thinking. Marcus watched as Sarah finished the apple. When she was done, she looked at him through the glass and did something unexpected. She pressed her hand against the glass and nodded her head. It was a thank you. The next night, Marcus came back with more food. This time he brought a sandwich and some fruit. He slid them through the food slot one at a time, making sure to keep his hands clear once the food was through. Sarah took each item carefully. She didn't grab or snatch. She waited for Marcus to pull his hand back before she took the food. It was clear that she understood the danger and was trying to be careful. After she ate, she sat down near the window. Marcus sat down on his side of the glass. For a while, they just looked at each other. Marcus decided to try something. He held up one finger. Sarah tilted her head, then held up one of her own fingers. Her hands were large, with long fingers that ended in what looked like claws, but she moved them gently. Marcus held up 2 fingers. Sarah copied him, then 3, then 4. She was learning. Over the next week, Marcus visited Sarah every night. He brought her food, and she always took it carefully. She never tried to grab him or hurt him. In fact, she seemed to go out of her way to make sure he felt safe. They developed a simple communication system. Marcus would point to things and say words. Sarah would listen and try to repeat the sounds. Her voice was deep and had an odd accent, but she was clearly intelligent. Food, Marcus would say, pointing to an apple. Food, Sarah would repeat, the word coming out longer than it should. Marcus, he said, pointing to himself. Marcus, she said. And the way she said his name made it sound almost musical. When he pointed to her and raised his eyebrows in a question, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something in her own language. It sounded like wind chimes and thunder at the same time. Sarah? Marcus asked, remembering what Kane had said about the guards calling her that. She shook her head and said the word in her language, again. But then she pointed to herself and said, Sarah, like she was accepting the human name. Marcus started bringing her other things besides food. A book with pictures, a small mirror, some colored pencils and paper. Each gift seemed to surprise her, like she couldn't believe someone was being kind to her. She was especially interested in the pictures. She would point to images of Earth and make questioning sounds. Marcus would try to explain using simple words and gestures. Earth, he would say, pointing to a picture of a forest. My home. Sarah would nod and point to herself, then make a gesture toward the ceiling like she was pointing to the stars. Then she would look sad. Marcus began to understand that she was far from home, just like he was. But unlike him, she couldn't go back. One night, Sarah did something that changed everything. She picked up one of the pencils Marcus had given her and started drawing on the wall of her cell. At first, Marcus thought she was just making random marks, but as he watched, he saw that she was drawing stars, not just any stars. She was drawing star maps. The patterns were complex and detailed. She would point to one group of stars, then to herself. Then she would point to another group and look at Marcus questioningly. She was trying to show him where she came from, and she was asking about where he came from. Marcus pulled out his tablet and showed her pictures of Earth's solar system. Sarah studied the images carefully, then pointed to her drawings and shook her head. Her home was somewhere else, far away. Over the following nights, their communication became more complex. Sarah started drawing other things, pictures of her people, images of ships among the stars, and sometimes pictures that looked like battles. Marcus began to realize that maybe the story he had been told about the Vorthak wasn't the whole truth. Maybe there was more to learn about why they had been fighting humans, but he also realized something else. He was starting to care about Sarah. She wasn't just a research subject anymore. She was a person, trapped and alone, and he was the only friend she had. That thought scared him, because he knew what would happen if anyone found out about their meetings. He would be arrested, and Sarah would be alone again. But every night, when he saw how much happier she looked after their visits, he knew he couldn't stop. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was against orders, he had to keep coming back. Because now he understood something that nobody else seemed to realize. Sarah wasn't a monster. She was just scared and far from home, doing her best to survive, in a place where everyone saw her as an enemy. and somehow, against all the rules and warnings, they had become friends. 2 weeks had passed since Marcus first brought Sarah the apple. Their nightly meetings had become the most important part of his day. He had learned to read her moods and expressions, and she had learned enough English to have simple conversations. "Why, are you here?" Marcus asked one night, sitting across from her with the glass between them. Sarah was quiet for a long time. She picked up one of the pencils he had given her and started drawing on the wall. This time her drawing was different. She drew what looked like a large ship, but it wasn't shaped like any human ship Marcus had seen. "My ship," she said in her careful English. "Science ship. We study stars." Marcus leaned forward. "You're scientists? Like me?" Sarah nodded. "We look for new worlds. Safe worlds." She drew more pictures. Her home planet looked beautiful in her drawings, with tall trees and floating cities. But then she drew something else. Dark clouds covering the sky, dead trees, empty cities. "What happened to your world?" Marcus asked. Sarah touched the drawings of the dead world. "Star sickness," she said. She didn't have the English words to explain better, but she drew a picture of their sun with dark spots on it. "Our sun dying, poison light." Marcus felt a chill. She was talking about solar radiation, probably from a dying star. Her people's sun was killing their planet. "How many of your people are left?" he asked. Sarah held up her hands and counted on her fingers, but she ran out of fingers quickly. She looked frustrated, then drew marks on the wall. When she was done, Marcus counted them. If he was reading her meaning correctly, there were only a few thousand Vorthak left alive. "We need new world," Sarah said. "Find planet where we can live." Marcus stared at her drawings. If this was true, then the Vorthak weren't invaders. They were refugees. But that didn't match what he had been told about the attacks on human colonies. "Sarah, your people attacked human settlements. They killed people." Sarah's expression grew sad and frustrated. She drew more pictures trying to explain. She drew human ships and Vorthak ships, but in her pictures the human ships were shooting. "First, we try to talk," she said. "We send peaceful signals, but humans shoot. We defend ourselves." Marcus felt his world shifting. "You were trying to communicate?" "Yes," Sarah said, her voice getting louder with emotion. "We want to share worlds, humans and Vorthak together. But humans fear us." She pointed to herself. "I am translator. I study human language before we meet. But when we try to talk, humans attack our ship." Marcus thought about this. If the Vorthak had been trying to communicate and humans had shot first, it would explain why there had been battles. Fear and misunderstanding had led to violence on both sides. "How did you end up here?" Marcus asked. Sarah's expression grew dark. "Human ships attack my science vessel. Kill my team. Take me prisoner." Marcus felt sick. If Sarah was telling the truth, then she had watched her friends die and been taken prisoner by the people who killed them. No wonder she had been defensive when humans tried to approach her. "Sarah, I'm sorry. If I had known..." She reached out and touched the glass where his hand was resting on the other side. "You different," she said. "You kind. You bring food, bring friendship. You not afraid." Over the next few nights, Marcus learned more about Sarah and her people. The Vorthak were peaceful by nature. They were explorers and scientists, not warriors. They had been searching space for years, looking for worlds they could share with other species. Earth and its colonies had seemed perfect. The Vorthak had observed humans from a distance and thought they could work together. Both species were intelligent. Both could travel between stars. It seemed like a natural partnership, but when they had tried to make contact, fear had won over curiosity. Marcus also learned about Sarah herself. Her real name was something beautiful in her language that sounded like singing. She had been the lead linguist on the science ship, spending years learning human languages so she could serve as a translator when first contact was made. She had friends and family back on her dying world. A sister who was also a scientist, parents who were teachers, a community that was depending on her mission to succeed. Now she was alone, and for all she knew, her people thought she was dead. "Do you hate humans?" Marcus asked one night. Sarah considered the question carefully. "I hate fear," she said finally. "I hate misunderstanding. But you show me that humans can be good. You show me hope." Marcus had been thinking about their situation, more and more. He couldn't keep visiting Sarah in secret forever. Eventually, someone would notice. And when they did, both of them would be in serious trouble. But he had also been thinking about what Sarah had told him. If her people were really refugees looking for a new home, and if the conflicts had been based on misunderstanding, then maybe there was a chance for peace. "Sarah, what if we could make the humans understand? What if we could tell them the truth about your people?" Sarah looked hopeful but also afraid. "You think they would listen?" "I don't know. But maybe if they knew your people were dying, and that you just wanted a place to live, they might be willing to share some worlds." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "If humans understand, if they want peace, I can help. I can translate. I can speak for my people." Marcus made a decision. "Then we need to try. But first, I need to gain the trust of the people in charge here." Over the following days, Marcus threw himself into his official research. He wrote detailed reports about Sarah's behavior, but he was careful about what he included. He wrote about her intelligence and her calm nature, but he didn't mention their conversations or the fact that she could speak English. He wanted to build a case that Sarah was more than just a dangerous alien. He wanted to show that she was a person worth listening to. Marcus also started asking careful questions around the station. He talked to other scientists about first contact protocols. He asked security personnel about their experiences with Sarah. He tried to understand how the station's leadership thought about the situation. What he learned worried him. Most people on the station saw Sarah as nothing more than a weapon to be studied or a bargaining chip to be used. They didn't think of her as a person with thoughts and feelings and rights. But Marcus also found a few people who seemed more open-minded. Dr. Jenny Clark, the station psychologist, had been arguing that Sarah's behavior suggested higher intelligence. Chief Engineer Peter Brooks had mentioned that the alien technology on Sarah's ship seemed designed for exploration, not war. Maybe, Marcus thought, there were allies to be found. One night, Sarah noticed that Marcus seemed worried. "What troubles you?" she asked. Marcus explained his concerns. "I want to help you, but I don't know how. The people here, they're afraid of your people. They see you as an enemy." Sarah nodded sadly. "Fear makes people do bad things, both humans and Vorthak. But what if we could show them that you're not an enemy? What if we could prove that your people want peace?" Sarah thought about this. "There is a way," she said slowly, "but it is dangerous." "What do you mean?" Sarah looked directly at Marcus. "You could let others see us together. Let them see that I do not hurt you. Let them see that we can be friends." Marcus felt his heart speed up. "Sarah, if they find out about our meetings, they'll arrest me, and they might hurt you." "I know," Sarah said. "But if they see us together, see that I protect you instead of harm you, maybe they understand." She placed her hand against the glass again. "Marcus, you save my life. You bring me food when I starve. You bring me friendship when I am alone. You give me hope when I have none." Her silver eyes met his. "Now I want to save your people and my people. I want to stop the fighting. But I cannot do it alone." Marcus stared at her through the glass. He knew she was right. If they wanted to change anything, they had to take risks. But he also knew that once they revealed their friendship, there would be no going back. "If we do this," he said, "everything will change." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "But maybe it changed for the better." Marcus made his choice. "Then let's do it. Let's show them that humans and Vorthak can be friends." As he said the words, Marcus realized that somewhere along the way, Sarah had become more than just a research subject or even a friend. She had become someone he would risk everything to protect, and from the way she looked at him, he suspected she felt the same way about him. Marcus had been visiting Sarah for almost a month when everything went wrong. He thought he had been careful, But Security Chief Ryan Brooks was more observant than Marcus had given him credit for. It started when Brooks noticed that Marcus was accessing the lower levels more often than his research required. Marcus had been filing reports about studying Sarah, but Brooks found it strange that Marcus needed to visit the restricted area so late at night. Brooks decided to check the security footage. What he saw made his blood run cold. There was Dr. Marcus Webb sitting on the floor outside Sarah's cell, apparently having a conversation with the alien. Even worse, the footage showed Marcus feeding her through the food slot. Brooks immediately called Commander Kane. "Commander, we have a problem," Brooks said over the comm. "Dr. Webb has been having unauthorized contact with the prisoner." Kane's voice was sharp. "What kind of contact?" "Direct communication. He's been feeding her by hand." The footage shows this has been going on for weeks. There was silence on the comm for a moment. Then Kane's voice came back, cold and hard. "Arrest him, now." Marcus was in his quarters getting ready for another visit to Sarah when Brooks and 2 guards burst through his door. They didn't give him time to explain or resist. Within minutes, he was in handcuffs. "Dr. Webb, you're under arrest for violating security protocols and endangering station personnel," Brooks said. "You don't understand," Marcus said as they dragged him toward the door. "She's not dangerous. She's been trying to communicate." "Save it for the commander," Brooks replied. But as they led Marcus through the corridors, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights flashed red, and an automated voice announced, "Security breach in containment level B7. All personnel. Evacuate immediately." Brooks grabbed his radio. "What's happening down there?" The reply came from a terrified guard. "The alien has broken out of her cell. She's demanding to see Dr. Webb." Marcus felt his heart drop. Sarah must have realized something was wrong when he didn't show up for their usual meeting. Now she was trying to find him, and that would only make things worse for both of them. "Please," Marcus said to Brooks. "Let me talk to her. I can calm her down." "Absolutely not," Brooks snapped. "You're the reason this is happening." They took Marcus to the security office instead of toward the containment level. Through the monitors, Marcus could see what was happening on level B7. Sarah had indeed broken out of her cell, but she wasn't rampaging or attacking anyone. She was standing in the corridor calling his name. "Marcus, Marcus, where are you?" Her voice echoed through the empty halls. Guards had surrounded the area, but they were keeping their distance. Even though Sarah wasn't attacking, she was still 12 feet tall and had demonstrated the strength to break through reinforced walls. Commander Kane arrived at the security office, her face grim. "How did this happen?" Brooks showed her the footage of Marcus's visits. Kane watched in silence, her expression growing darker with each scene. "Dr. Webb, what have you done?" she asked when the footage ended. "I've made first contact," Marcus said. "Commander, she's not what we thought. Her people aren't invaders. They're refugees." "Refugees?" Kane laughed bitterly. "They've killed hundreds of our people in attacks on our colonies." "Because we shot first," Marcus said. "They were trying to communicate and we attacked them. Sarah told me everything. Her people are dying. Their sun is killing their planet. They were looking for somewhere to live, not somewhere to conquer." Kane stared at him. "And you believe her?" "She's a scientist, just like us. She was the translator on their science ship. She learned our languages so she could help make peaceful contact." On the monitors, they could see Sarah moving through the corridors. She was searching every room looking for Marcus. The guards were following her, but none of them dared get close enough to try to stop her. "Marcus!" Sarah's voice came through, the speakers again. "Please, where are you?" Kane watched the monitors with a frown. "If she's so peaceful, why is she tearing through my station?" "Because she's protecting me," Marcus said. "Commander, she thinks you're going to hurt me. That's why she broke out." As if to prove his point, Sarah's voice came through the speakers again, but this time she was speaking in English directed at the cameras. "I know you watch me. I know you can hear me. Give me back Marcus. He is my friend. I will not hurt him, but I will not let you hurt him either." Dr. Jenny Clark, the station psychologist, entered the security office at that moment. She had been called in to help deal with the crisis. "Commander," she said, "I've been analyzing the alien's behavior. This isn't aggression. This is protective behavior." "What do you mean?" Kane asked. "She's not trying to escape or attack the station. She's specifically looking for Dr. Webb. Her vocalizations show distress, not anger. And look at her body language." On the monitors, Sarah had stopped in front of a camera. She was standing with her hands visible, not in fists, but open and peaceful. "Please," Sarah said to the camera. "I want to talk. I want to explain. But first, let me see that Marcus is safe." Kane looked between the monitors and Marcus. "Dr. Webb, if I let you talk to her, can you get her to return to her cell?" "I can try," Marcus said. "But Commander, I think we should listen to what she has to say. If there's a chance for peace—" Brooks interrupted. "Commander, this is insane. We can't trust either of them. Webb has been compromised by extended contact with the alien." "I haven't been compromised," Marcus said firmly. "I've been educated. There's a difference." Kane made a decision. "Bring Webb to level B7, but keep him in restraints and have a full security team standing by." They took Marcus down in the elevator, his hands still cuffed behind his back. When the doors opened, Sarah was waiting in the corridor. The moment she saw Marcus, her expression changed from worry to relief, then to anger when she noticed the handcuffs. "Why is he tied up?" she demanded, stepping toward the guards. The guards raised their weapons and Sarah immediately stopped moving, but her silver eyes blazed with fury. "Sarah, I'm okay," Marcus called out. "Please don't do anything that will make this worse." Sarah looked at him, then at the guards, then back at Marcus. Slowly, she raised her hands to show she meant no harm. "Marcus, I thought they hurt you," she said. "When you not come tonight, I worry." "I know. I'm sorry. But Sarah, they found out about our meetings." Kane stepped forward, though she stayed well behind the line of guards. "Subject 47, you will return to your cell immediately, or we will use force." Sarah looked at Kane with contempt. "My name is Sarah, and I will not return to cage until we talk." "We don't negotiate with prisoners," Kane said. "Then you will have problem," Sarah replied calmly, "because I will not move until I know Marcus is safe." The standoff continued for several tense minutes. Sarah stood in the middle of the corridor, hands raised but ready to defend herself. The guards surrounded her with weapons drawn but were clearly afraid to get closer. Marcus stood between them, handcuffed and helpless. Finally, Dr. Clark spoke up. "Commander, maybe we should listen to what she has to say. We're not going to resolve this with force." Kane looked around at the situation. Her guards were nervous. Her station was in lockdown, and she had an alien who seemed more interested in protecting one human than escaping. "5 minutes, Kane said finally. "You have 5 minutes to explain yourself." Sarah nodded. "I need Marcus free. He will translate if my English not good enough." "Absolutely not," Brooks said, but Sarah's expression hardened. "Then we have nothing to talk about. Marcus is my friend. I will not speak while he is treated like criminal." Kane studied Sarah's face, then looked at Marcus. Against her better judgment, she made a decision that would change everything. "Remove his restraints," she ordered. Brooks protested, but Kane cut him off. "Do it." As soon as Marcus's hands were free, Sarah visibly relaxed. She moved to stand closer to him, but not so close that it would alarm the guards. "Thank you," she said to Kane. Then she looked directly into the commander's eyes. "Now I will tell you truth about my people, and why the fighting must stop." Marcus felt his heart racing. This was the moment that would determine whether there could be peace between humans and Vorthak, or whether the misunderstanding would continue to lead to more death on both sides. Everything depended on whether Kane was willing to listen to the truth. Sarah stood in the corridor surrounded by armed guards and began to tell her story. Marcus watched Commander Kane's face as Sarah explained about her dying world, her people's desperate search for a new home, and the terrible misunderstandings that had led to war. "My people are not warriors," Sarah said, her English clear despite her accent. "We are explorers, scientists, artists. We have traveled the stars for many years, looking for worlds where we can live. Kane listened, but Marcus could see she was skeptical. If you're so peaceful, why have your people attacked our colonies? Sarah's expression grew sad. Because your people shot at us first. We tried to send peaceful messages. We tried to show that we came in friendship, but every time we approached, human ships opened fire. That's not how our reports describe it, Brooks interjected. Marcus stepped forward. Commander, what if our reports were wrong? What if the people who survived the encounters only saw part of what happened? Kane frowned. Are you suggesting our own people lied? Not lied, Marcus said carefully. But maybe they misunderstood what they saw. If Sarah's people were trying to communicate and we saw it as aggression, Sarah nodded. Your ships approached ours. We thought this was good. We prepared welcome messages, but then your ships fired weapons. Our ships defended themselves. She looked directly at Kane. After each fight, we tried to understand what went wrong. We captured some of your communications. We learned your languages. That is why I speak English now. Dr. Clark had been listening carefully. Commander, her story makes sense from a psychological perspective. If two species tried to make contact and both misinterpreted the other's intentions, it could lead to exactly the kind of conflicts we've been seeing, Marcus finished. Kane was quiet for a long moment. Even if that's true, how do we know you're telling the truth now? How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Sarah looked at Marcus, then back at Kane. Because Marcus showed me that humans can be good. He fed me when I was hungry. He talked to me when I was alone. He treated me like a person, not like an animal. She gestured to Marcus. If all humans were like him, there would be no war between our peoples. Kane studied both of them. Dr. Webb, do you believe her? Marcus nodded. Completely. Commander, I've spent weeks talking with Sarah. I've seen her intelligence, her compassion, her desire for peace. She's not our enemy. Before Kane could respond, alarms began blaring again. This time it was a different alarm, one that meant incoming ships. Brooks grabbed his radio. Security report. Commander, we have multiple contacts approaching the station. They're not broadcasting human identification codes. Kane's face went pale. Vorthak ships? Unknown, ma'am. They're requesting permission to dock. Sarah suddenly looked hopeful and afraid at the same time. My people, she whispered. They found me. Kane turned to her. How many ships? I do not know. But Commander, please, let me talk to them. I can prevent fighting. Kane faced the hardest decision of her career. She could treat this as an attack and order her defenses to fire first, or she could trust Sarah and try to make peaceful contact. What are they saying? Kane asked Brooks. Brooks listened to his radio, then looked confused. They're broadcasting in English. They're asking for permission to retrieve their scientist. They're saying they don't want conflict. Sarah stepped forward eagerly. Please, Commander, let me speak to them. I can translate. I can help both sides. Understand? Kane looked between Sarah and Marcus. If I let you do this, how do I know you won't just leave with them? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at Marcus. Because someone must stay to help our peoples learn to trust each other. Someone must build the bridge between humans and Vorthak. She turned back to Kane. I will stay, Commander. I will be translator and ambassador. But only if you promise that Marcus will not be punished for showing me kindness. Marcus felt his heart skip. Sarah was willing to stay in captivity to protect him and help their peoples make peace. You don't have to do that, he said to her. Sarah smiled at him. Yes, I do. You saved my life, Marcus. Now I save both our peoples. Kane made her decision. Take us to the communications center. You can talk to your ships from there. They all moved through the station together, an unlikely group. Kane and Brooks led the way, followed by Marcus and Sarah, with guards surrounding them. When they reached the communications center, Kane nodded to the technician, open a channel to the alien ships. Sarah stepped up to the microphone. She spoke first in her own language, her voice making the beautiful wind chime sounds Marcus had heard before. Then she switched to English so the humans could understand. "This is Sarah, linguist of the science vessel Dawn's Hope. I am alive and well. The humans have treated me fairly." The response came immediately, also in the musical Vorthak language. Marcus could hear the relief and joy in the voices speaking to Sarah. Sarah continued the conversation in both languages, translating for Kane. "My people want to know if I'm really safe. They want to know if humans will let me return home." Kane took the microphone. "This is Commander Kane of Titan's Gate Station. We're willing to discuss peaceful contact, but we need guarantees that your ships won't attack." Sarah translated, then listened to the response. "They say they will not attack unless attacked first. They want to send one small ship to dock. Only diplomats, no weapons." Kane looked around at her staff. This was the moment that would decide whether humans and Vorthak would be friends or enemies. "Tell them they can send one ship. But it will be searched before anyone can board our station." Over the next few hours, Marcus watched history being made. The Vorthak ship docked without incident. 2 aliens came aboard, and Marcus saw that they looked much like Sarah, though smaller. One was male and one was female, both dressed in simple clothes that looked more like scientist uniforms than military gear. The meeting that followed was difficult but hopeful. With Sarah translating, both sides finally understood what had been happening. The Vorthak showed star charts of their dying system. The humans showed maps of available worlds in their territory. It turned out that there were several planets that humans had surveyed but never settled, worlds that could support Vorthak life. The possibility of sharing space rather than fighting for it became real. The negotiations took days, but finally, an agreement was reached. The Vorthak would be allowed to settle on 3 uninhabited worlds in human space. In return, they would share their advanced technology and serve as allies against other threats in the galaxy. Most importantly, Sarah would stay on Titan's Gate as the first Vorthak ambassador to humanity. Marcus would work with her as the human liaison, helping both species learn to understand each other. On the day the agreement was signed, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah in what had been her cell but was now being converted into proper quarters. "Are you sure about this?" he asked her. "You could go home with your people." Sarah looked at him with those silver eyes that had first captured his attention. "Home is where family is," she said. "My family now includes humans and Vorthak," and placed her large hand gently on his shoulder. "Besides, someone must make sure you do not get in trouble again for feeding aliens." Marcus laughed. "I think that's going to be part of my job description now." They looked out through the viewport, at the stars where human and Vorthak ships now traveled together instead of hunting each other. "Do you think it will work?" Marcus asked. "This peace between our peoples?" Sarah smiled. "It will work because we will make it work. You showed me that humans can choose kindness over fear. I will show my people the same thing." She squeezed his shoulder gently. "And together we will show the galaxy that different peoples can be family." Marcus looked at this alien woman who had become his closest friend and partner in the most important work of his life. A few months ago he had been told she was a monster who would kill anyone who fed her. Now he knew the truth. She hadn't been hungry for food. She had been hungry for friendship, for understanding, for hope. And by feeding that hunger, Marcus had helped create something beautiful, the first real peace between the stars. As he watched Vorthak and human ships working together in the distance, Marcus smiled. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was also the most important. Sometimes you had to ignore the warnings and feed the alien giantess anyway, because sometimes that was how you saved 2 worlds.